So where do you want to begin? I think the biggest move to me was Russell Wilson, right? Like he set it off to me, and I don't know if you think that's the biggest move or not. I think with with the Broncos letting him go and paying $38 million of his salary, a quarterback like Russell Wilson that finished in the top 20
Yeah.
ranked in quarterbacks,
Yeah.
the team was going to get him for cheap. So it was going to be really interesting to see what kind of team, because he could have went to like the Commanders and probably got 20 million from them, right? He could have went to the Patriots, where it's there's a lot of uncertainty, but it's the Patriots and the division isn't as wide open, based on how the Bills and the Dolphins finished. And then, but he ends up with the Steelers, where, probably like the AFC East, that division is not as locked up as we thought.
Yeah.
The Bengals are falling apart at the seams.
Mm-hmm.
T. Higgins is franchised. He didn't like it. Now he's requesting a trade.
Yeah.
The Ravens, they got Derrick Henry, which was huge, but let's face it, Derrick Henry isn't the guy he used
Exactly.
to be.
He's on the back nine of his career, right? He's getting up there.
So, and it reminded me a lot of what OBJ signed there, and everybody was like, "Oh, OBJ," but as we saw, he wasn't really that OBJ. So,
Correct.
I have more faith in Derrick Henry kind of being the Derrick Henry we know.
It's not going to hurt Baltimore by any means. It's just what we're saying. It's just not as huge as a signing like Russell Wilson is now.
Right.
I think this is big, right? I think it's overshadowed by something else I'll get to in just a moment. I think this is good for the Steelers. If we see the Russell Wilson we should see. And here's the thing. I think Tomlin can get it out of him. I think it wasn't a good locker room. It wasn't coaching. It wasn't, anything in Denver. And what people have to remember, Denver paid this man and gave him all of this guaranteed money before he even took a snap for them.
I know.
Like they were all about it. And we on this platform said, I don't know if that's going to be a good idea. Yeah. And I mean, we were right. I like this for Russell, though. I do. It's huge. It does open up their contention in that division a little bit more. Now, what this is overshadowed for me, which I think, and maybe for a lot of people, though, I honestly think one of the biggest moves was one of the first ones we heard about. And that was Kirk Cousins getting paid going to Atlanta. Honestly, see absolutely nothing but upside. You want to talk about a quarterback coming in and changing the narrative of an entire division?
Yeah.
This could potentially blow up the NFC South. This could propel the Falcons. Now, here's the thing. He's coming off an Achilles injury.
Yes.
He's also 36 years old. But he is Kirk Cousins. Like him, hate him, he gets it done. He did great things for the Commanders on his way out. The Vikings, really good run. I mean, obviously one playoff win, so it is what it is. But I think he's a serviceable quarterback. And you pair him up with the likes of Bijan and Kyle Pitts and Drake London, and there's a lot of upside here, particularly in that division. The only downside to this is the fact that he's coming off that injury. He is 36 years old. And he got paid a lot of money. And I know that's just the market now. We have no one to thank but the likes of a Russell Wilson or a Daniel Jones for how much money he got. And I read something crazy today. It was on Instagram. I don't even know if it was true. And it said Tom Brady earned $333 million over his career of 23 seasons, 35 playoff wins. Kirk Cousins is now sitting at $412 million career earnings with 16 seasons and 1 playoff win. I have yet to check if those numbers are accurate, but if they are, wow, does that speak volumes of quarterbacks getting paid in today's era versus when Brady signed his long-term contracts too, which is crazy. But I honestly think that was probably one of the biggest signings outside of, like, we'll say Saquon going to the Eagles.
We're going to get to Saquon in a minute.
Yeah.
So I believe one of the most blasphemous things, or what, and I say a lot of stuff on social media. Shout out to everybody who follows us at Stuff About Sports on Instagram on the way to 5K. But I made the notion when I was thinking about it, because that, with Baker getting the contract he deserves, I believe he got the 3-year, $100 million. He earned it. People thought the Bucs were going to fall off a cliff. And not only did he not let that happen, he got the Bucs a division title and then they dog walked the Eagles out of the playoffs, and then they almost beat the Lions. He threw that late game interception. There was a lot of other things that weren't really his fault. Some of them were his fault. It was a good game. Like it was that game was literally who was going to make the first mistake. Baker put them in the game. I'm not going to blame him for losing the game, but he did throw that late interception, obviously, that lost it, but he played well enough to win. So I know a lot of people kind of are on Baker a little bit about that loss, but that was just a great
You can't
game.
put that on Baker. And if you are, you're just, I mean, you're an idiot. That
Quarterbacks throw interceptions. It happens. All right. And the Lions have been good all year. So, and I don't want to be a QB wins guy, but I made the comment that Kirk Cousins, in my humble opinion, is a Hall of Famer. And boy, you would have thought I said that the pink starburst wasn't the best flavor or something. You would have thought I said something ridiculous. Like cornflakes are better than Cocoa Pebbles or something. You would have thought I said something out of this world. And I sat there and I said, well, wait a minute. Let's look at the numbers here. Okay, yes, his playoff success isn't where I think he should be. He has just like the Monday night stat for him. Like it's just there's certain weird stats with him that don't make sense when you look at his overarching body of work, right? But wait a minute, we're talking about accolades. So what does that mean? Dan Marino isn't any good. Warren Moon isn't any good.
Dan Marino had a couple more playoff wins.
I got you, but
I'll give you Warren Moon though.
But you're saying win, like he didn't win anything. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of quarterbacks that haven't won anything and they're highly touted. Kirk Cousins, as it stands right now, is has the eighth highest passer rating in NFL history. Yeah. Kirk Cousins right now is top 20 in passing yards all time. And I believe he's like 23, 24 somewhere in passing touchdowns. So he has a 4-year contract. I looked at the numbers. He's going to get into the top 20. And he's probably going to end up in the top 10 in the other two categories if he plays at this level. Another, let's say he has 4 years left in Atlanta. Let's say he plays another 2 years as a backup and gets those Joe Flacco like half a season yards. Yeah. He can end up top 10. Shout out to Joe Flacco. Just right before we came on, signed with the Colts. So I'm glad that the body of Joe Flacco is still just fluttering around out there.
Still out there, getting paid. Yeah,
getting paid money. Good for him. But I get it. He's earned $330 million, as you just said, guaranteed dollars over the course. Like he knows how to play the system. Bums don't get that type of money. Yes, I'm not saying that Kirk Cousins is a top 5 quarterback. I think last year when we were discussing Dak Prescott, we said the line is Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins. To me, they're about the same. I think I'd rather have Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins is a little bit better of a quarterback, but if you have worse than that, then your team's probably not any good. If Dak Prescott is the medium, Kirk Cousins is a hair above that or a step right there. You can't, you can win with that. So I'm very happy for Atlanta. And then in terms of the situation, I mean, yes, he walked away from Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, that defense they had in Minnesota, but they won a lot of games in Minnesota. But now you're in a tough division then. Now you're in not so tough division. We just gave praise to Baker, but outside of that, you scared of Carolina? Nope. You scared of New Orleans? Nope. And so Tampa's really your only real competition, and Atlanta had it all figured out. The only problem they didn't have was their quarterback wasn't any good. Desmond Ridder wasn't any good. Yeah. And shout out to our guy. We love him, Taylor Heineke, but he's not a starter. He's a backup. He's a guy that can come in for about 3 or 4 games and probably get you 2 to 3 of those. And just someone that's not going to sink the season for you. So shout out to Kirk Cousins and good for him because Atlanta is heavily favored to win that division now, as they should be. And all of it will, as you said, hinge on that shoulder injury, or I mean the what was it, the Achilles injury. He probably should have went on the Oshawiga root picnic thing.
Darkness cave retreat. Whatever it was. Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers just took Von Miller, Jordan Poyer, and a bunch of other players to the thing today in the news. They just took all these players. So it's nuts. Everybody's going to be high down there licking toads, getting healthy. So shout out to them. It's not a
hey man, if it works, I'm about to sign up. I don't know. Yeah,
I know. I'm starting to feel it, man. My body's starting to betray me a little bit. So we were talking about Russell Wilson earlier. Again, it's Mason Rudolph ends up going to the Titans. So I mean, it's Russell Wilson or Kenny Pickett or bust, right? Like maybe you sign a veteran somewhere in training camp, or you draft a young guy. I don't know, in the later rounds of the draft, but I mean, Russell, by all accounts, I get that he'll get the blame in Denver, but Sean Payton didn't even want to coach in Denver. He wanted to coach the Chargers.
Yeah.
And so that didn't, just the timing didn't work out. So he settled for Denver. Never liked Russell from the beginning, so it was always doomed to fail. So to me, this is Russell's last shot, because a lot of damage was done to his reputation, deservedly so. Like, what do you need a corner office for? You know what I mean? Like, what do you, he just always strikes me as a guy that tries too hard to be liked. And he kind of already started, like he put on his Instagram today, I guess the Steelers had sent him all his jerseys, right? Like the throwback they wear, and then his home and away jersey. But he was playing Black and Yellow by Wiz Khalifa. Like, this is 2002 or whatever, whenever that song came out. Like, it's like, I get it, man. Like, I do, but it's corny. It's like, you're not, as long as we don't get a Steelers country let's ride, I think I'll be okay.
I think we'll see something like that.
100%. We're definitely going to see something like that. Bert, do me a favor, because I want to escalate the flames as high as I possibly can on the Saquon Barkley Tiki Barber beef, which has got to be one of the dumbest things.
It's so dumb.
It's dumb, right?
It's dumb on Tiki's part, I think.
Yeah.
And whether he said it tongue in cheek or not, Tiki has always been an underlying hater of Giants' success.
Yeah.
And he had a great career with the Giants. He never won a Super Bowl, but you can tell there's some saltiness for really good players, particularly running backs that have come through the organization. And he's been very critical of Saquon throughout his career. And the comment and then the response from Barkley and the back and forth. And then, I mean, our favorite NFL analyst, Joy Taylor.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I don't know if you saw that clip berating Tiki Barber.
Yeah.
About the fact that it's one thing to go after his play. It's another thing to go after his character. It's just, the whole thing is silly to me. But hey, it exists and it's entertaining. So why not?
So again, one of the greatest running backs about 20 years ago that we had, Tiki Barber, tells this the greatest running back the Giants have had in a while.
Yeah.
That you're dead to
me.
Ahmad
Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs that basically said, "Hey, good luck, you're dead to me." And
like Saquon wanted to leave the Giants. You know what I mean? Like
the Giants didn't want, not Saquon. To use a football pun, but fumbled this out the door. Now, granted, we're talking about a great running back, back-to-back seasons of 1,200 yards, 10 plus touchdowns. But over the past 5 seasons has missed a combined 25 games. So obviously there's issues staying healthy. Now the Giants last year had the opportunity to use the tag on him. Didn't. Signed him to a 1-year extension. Went through this year, had a great season, didn't tag him again. And at that point, last week, this show, I said, he's not staying a Giant. No. He's going to go, he's going to test the market, and he's going to get paid. And I honestly, from a fan standpoint, I wish it was anywhere else outside the NFC East, solely for the fact that I know he's going to have a revenge game, 2 of them to be, in fact, against us. Plain and simple. I'm not a Giant fan that'll sit there and boo him in Eagles colors as much as I might want to, and I despise everything Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders. I still do very much appreciate what he's done for the Giants. I mean, for Christ's sake, he was carrying the offense for the past 5-6 seasons alone. We're talking about a guy who has never really worked with a fully functional offensive line, which probably aided to a lot of his injuries and missed games. How many different quarterbacks he's worked with, of course, starting with the GOAT, Eli, and then now, of course, finishing up with Daniel Jones. And I think, he's just been their workhorse, which at 27 years old now, and which is getting old from a running back standpoint. But I think and a lot of Giant fans are going to hate me for this, I think he's going to flourish on the Eagles, where he has the likes of a more mobile QB who does like to stretch the legs and run within Jalen Hurts, and a good offensive line where they're actually going to create gaps for him to run through. And I think he's probably going to stay healthier than he has, just by way of how their offense works. I don't want him and that team to, well, I want him to be personally successful. I don't want the Eagles to even sniff a Super Bowl, obviously, because I'm a Giant fan, but
Right.
this is a good move for him. And here's what hurts the most. And when you boil it down away from them being athletes, he went with the Eagles, I guess, partly because they paid him, but also for me, mentally, he wanted to stay local. And
Yeah.
if the Giants and the Jets weren't going, the Giants weren't going to keep him, the Jets weren't even calling. And the next logical, all right, well, if the Eagles are going to give me, was it guaranteed 15 a year? Something like that. Then yeah, why not stay with the Eagles? Or stay within the area and just go to the Eagles. It's gonna suck, Jerm. I'm not
Yeah. I
happy
believe it.
about it, but I'm also not irate and calling him a traitor or a Snaquan or like anything else like I've seen with some other people. So
Snaquan.
Snaquan.
That's good. I like that.
It
Yeah,
just,
3 years, 38 million. I mean, the Giants weren't going to pay that. So
no.
and,
Well, no.
and good for him. And good for him. You know, he gets a better offense, a
Yeah.
better offensive line. Sans, I know Jason Kelsey isn't going to be there, but he will flourish, and he's not going to be the bell cow that he was. But I want to stick to the funny here, Bert. I mean, when was the last time you said you're dead to me? Like that's it reminds me of like Clueless or something. Like this is like an old early 2000s, late 90s insult.
I'm trying to think
to me,
like from a sports standpoint.
Yeah.
What is like
that?
the equivalent? Like, and I think we spoke in our text the other day of like Shohei going to the Dodgers, right? That's another crosstown rival, huge rivalry that could be comparable. I doubt you'll have Angels players saying you're dead to me. But
you know what reminded me that, well, the closest thing I could think of was when LeBron left Cleveland the first time and he went to Miami.
Ooh.
They were tearing down his murals. They were doing all types of stuff.
Because it's the way he did it.
They were burning. Yeah, they were burning.
They're burning his jerseys in the streets. Yeah.
I mean, they're burning Saquon jerseys. It's like the burning of the jerseys fun because I do it all the time. I do it every weekend. And so
controlled burn.
Control burn. So good for, I mean, does this Philly's the best team because the Dallas for some reason is still favored to win the NFC East, which I don't
boggles my mind. I honestly don't get it,
because they want you to bet the Eagles. This is where like the group chat, you know, all of us new freshly North Carolina bettors are in our group chat at the Firehouse, and we're sitting there thinking like, how are the Cowboys favored? I was like, yeah, this is like a Vegas thing. They want you to bet the Eagles. Like this is like they're trying to bait you into betting, they're trying to bait you to bet the Cowboys, you know, because they know they're not going to win the division. So they're trying to get you to put all their money.
So they don't have to pay out. Yeah.
Right. So they don't have to pay out. So I was like, this is like old Vegas trick. There's no way you can look. The Cowboys did virtually nothing.
Exactly. They lost Pollard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So who do they have? What, that midget running back guy, Vaughn something, right? Whatever his name is, right? He's like 4 foot tall. You seen him last preseason?
He's going to run through people's legs. That's how nobody tackles him.
I'm about to say nobody's going to be able to tackle him. He's like a child. Tony Pollard ends up replacing Derrick Henry in Tennessee. So yikes. I mean, the Cowboys are in trouble, and Dak Prescott is going to get the blame for it. I can't wait. I really can't wait. Tiki, just to shoot him some bail back to the Saquon thing.
Yeah.
If anybody knows what it's like to be a running back in New York or be a star in New York, it's him.
Yeah.
So I guess I can see where he would be disappointed in Saquon not maybe living up to the billing, right? Like not really, you know, what's Saquon's legacy in New York? It's being the best player on a bad team. And even though he had no support, that's not how other great running backs are going to view that, or great players, especially players of that team. So now what do you have? You have Tiki calling you, you're dead to me. Yeah. Saquon calling him a hater. Don LaGreca out there fucking talking shit on WFAN. It's like, That's New York media, right? And now,
New York sports media is fucking ruthless, especially for
ruthless.
beat reporters covering their own fucking team.
Yeah,
Like, and a certain, I mean, look, there are certain favorites of mine. There are certain people I don't like, and I'm looking at you, Larry Brooks, who covers the Rangers. But anyways, but look, I mean, listen, Don LeGreca is the same way. I mean, Jets, Giants, Yankees, Rangers. He's going to give it to you honestly and tell you what he thinks, and I admire that to a certain extent. I get your point. Tiki does know what it's like. Tiki was also taken care of by the organization.
Yeah.
Tiki was signed. He was tagged. He was also one of our best players on some miserable teams that we've had before. The unfortunate reality of what football has become is, a little bit of out of your camp. Don't pay skill players, particularly ones who are injury prone and are getting up there by average age of their position, and hope for the best. I guess the one caveat is last year we paid Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
And honestly, he had one good season that may have warranted a bump in his contract. But to say that, I'm sure there are some Giant fans that are like, if we didn't pay him and we get another Joe Schmo, who knows, maybe even a Kirk Cousins in the future, and kept Saquon somehow, I mean, that could have worked out that way. But again, like, we're not in the room. We don't know we know kind of what kind of money he was asking for from what the Eagles paid him, but I don't know what the negotiations were last year, even this year with the Giants. Or maybe honestly, he wanted to truly just go with a team that gave him the best opportunity to get a ring. And I don't hate that.
Yeah.
I won't, right? Not in today's NFL. Loyalty only gets you so far.
People need to stop throwing the word loyalty around. We went through this with the Buffalo Bills. We got rid of a bunch of players, and Jordan Poyer's wife. Jordan Poyer was so upset that he went and signed a 1-year deal with the Miami Dolphins after years of talking shit about them. And his wife, who's notoriously ruthless on Twitter herself, was like, "Oh, finally home." Like, it's crazy. Like, it's a business, and you want to respect it, and you have to brace yourself for some of these things. Jordan Poyer was a Bill for a glorious 7 years, man. Gave us everything. Gave us his body. He was hurt. Came back early. I am upset at the Buffalo Bills for the way they handled the cap. We went all in on Von Miller, and it didn't pay off. And this is like, eventually the bill has to be paid. There's only so many years you can push it back. And now you have all these restructures just to get under the salary cap. And it's like, you're not really adding anything. Like, we added, we re-signed secondary players that we were like, oh, he's good enough. Like, you're signing receivers like Mac Hollins, who been in the league for 6 years, already been on 4 teams, like, because you need receiver help, and it's bad. So, like, but there was a lot of good moves. Sam Darnold somehow getting paid 10 times more than Russell Wilson to play football, like in Minnesota.
That is insane.
Sam Darnold,
the guy that was laughed out of the Jet. Well, one of many of them who was laughed out of the Jets, laughed out of North Carolina.
Yep. Couldn't beat Trey Lance and
couldn't beat Trey Lance or Brock Purdy for a starting gig. Goes, I don't know. I don't know if he helped them hide a dead body. I don't know why Minnesota was like, hey, yeah, we'll open up our purse for you. Like, I don't know. But who knows? Like, dude, this is the thing. You go to, like, I mean, he literally went from the Jets to North Carolina. The Jets have been a dumpster fire going on how many decades now? And then North Carolina was facing an identity crisis when he was there, not even knowing how it was being run. Their coaching staff was shit at the time. And then you go to a team with depth like San Francisco, where, I mean, not for nothing, he was trying to battle. I mean, the Trey Lance thing is insane to me. How do you not beat that? But like, Brock Purdy is Brock Purdy. So you're in that system. You're getting some reps, but maybe Minnesota is where he's going to flourish. I don't know. We'll see.
I know they better figure it out, because Justin Jefferson ain't dealing with that. Tell you that.
No, absolutely not.
So we're talking about all the highs and all the teams that got better. There's plenty to choose from. I mean, I spoke about the Dolphins losing all their good players. I'm no longer concerned about them. Losing Christian Wilkins is big. They lost a lot of their defensive pieces. That's huge. So not really worried about them. But I want to take time to laugh at the Carolina Panthers, the team you just mentioned. Hey, thanks for Brian Burns, huh? Am I right?
Oh, dude, yes.
When you were offered 3 first-round picks for him last year, and you said no thanks, and now this is the total trade package for everything Carolina's done the last few years, combining Brian Burns and Bryce Young and the Christian McCaffrey trades, all those trades to get rid of or bring in those players.
Mm-hmm.
The Panthers gave away the 2024. They gave away last year's pick, which they got Bryce Young for, and this year's pick. So think the Panthers could be drafting Caleb Williams. So let's, for all intents and purposes, say Caleb Williams. You gave up Christian McCaffrey. You gave up DJ Moore. You gave up last year's first-round pick, last year's second-round pick, this year's first-round pick, and next year's first-round pick. Both all top 10, not protected. Crazy. And what you got in return is a 1-year rental of Brian Burns, because he's not going to sign an extension.
Yep.
You got Bryce Young, who's 5'10". You have DJ Johnson, who was Pro Football Focus 125th ranked edge rusher, and 2 round 5 picks. That's it. This is what happened, Bert, when hedge managers, successful hedge managers, I'll give David Tepper a little credit, thinks that their success in the business world translates into other arenas, right? Like football. This is real life. We call it real life fantasy football. The tech guys do it. They hire these nerds that type in their computers and they spit out these things, and then you also try to, you do a little gambling, and then that's it. And so, Bert, the Madden games won't let you rob franchises the way the Carolina Panthers have been robbed. But look on the bright side. You have dope colors. You have a dope logo.
Yeah.
Shout out to them. And then you have Bryce Young, and now you're hitched your wagon to Bryce Young.
Yeah.
And this just furthers my argument that Alabama produces the most overrated quarterbacks, and we overrate Alabama quarterbacks and Alabama as a whole by a lot. There's not been one successful Alabama quarterback that I can remember. If you want to count Tua, but like not one that's like been like Super Bowl winning, like take over the league. Not in Josh Allen's, Joe Burrow's, Justin Herbert, if you want to throw him in there, and obviously Patrick Mahomes. Not in those. They're not. None of them have ever been in that. And you would think they should be. You know why? Because they're in Alabama, where everybody's NFL ready, and you surround them, and you never get to see these guys in a lesser than situation. Of course, Bryce Young looks good when he has the best offensive line players. There was some crazy picture. Alabama at one time had Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs, Devonta Smith, and Jerry Jeudy. Those were their 4 receivers. Outside of Henry Ruggs, who was a number 1 receiver until he ruined his life. But you're looking at a bunch of top-end receivers, all on one team. So circumstances matter, And even with all those pieces around Bryce Young at Alabama, he was still only decent, right? Like, he wasn't like the man. And so obviously this was like, you could tell this was going to happen to them. So Carolina's in a bad way, man. I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to have to figure it out. I don't know if Bryce Young can be any good. I don't know, what you do for that, but you have to get him some weapons. Like, you have to get him somebody. And it's going to be more of the same with this team. I know they signed.
Obviously they're going to have to do something in this draft, right? They have enough picks. Why not? And then grow from there. But yeah, I would say they're down in a bad way. To give up. Look, they put a non-restricted tag on him.
What receiver did they just pick up? They just picked up a receiver.
They did. Man, I just saw it this afternoon too.
I forgot who they signed, but they signed somebody. I was like, why? Well, honestly, I was like, oh, they traded for Deontay Johnson from the Steelers. That's who it was.
Yep. Yeah.
So they got to work on that offensive line, though. Like, you have a short quarterback, you have to get an offensive line that can block. He can't be running for his life and doing things like that. And so we'll see what they do. It'll be crazy. Houston had the best free agency period. You get Daniil Hunter, you get Joe Mixon, you sign a bunch of players. They're going to have a decent draft. They're going to have a good draft pick because of the trades they made. The Texans, to me, had the best offseason, best free agency so far. And Chicago, hey, listen, Chicago, I know there's a lot of first round, here's the thing we haven't really talked about, Bert. What if Chicago simply doesn't draft Caleb Williams? Like, Nobody's. Hey, there's a possibility that we'll just trade to Caleb Williams. We'll trade with New England or whoever has a second or third pick. We're going to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. You guys can have Caleb Williams, and we're probably going to get another second round pick, and we can draft more help on the offensive and defensive line. You got DeAndre Swift from Philly, which I think Philly should have kept. Like, I feel like you could have paid Swift less than that. I believe.
Here's what's crazy about Swift is he was, I think, listed number 5 running back in rushing last season. And arguably they're saying that Saquon now is an upgrade to Swift, which I would agree, which makes it even scarier if you're able to take an offense and have Swift be a number 5 guy in the NFL. Just imagine what Saquon can do.
And then obviously Derrick Henry to the Ravens. We talked about that a little bit. We
should talk about the Packers though.
Okay. Yeah.
Packers signed Jones, right? Yep. And they signed Xavier McKinney.
Yep. Nice.
So, and we're talking about a team that was a missed field goal away from knocking out the Niners in the postseason. So, like, let's not sleep on them. I think that division is going to be very interesting next year.
Yeah. Signing Josh Jacobs, you move on from AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones.
Excuse me. That's Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs.
They kicked Jones to the side. Yeah. Josh Jacobs. Yep.
But again, Xavier McKinney, like, you're right. It went from, oh man, I don't know if Jordan loves the guy to, Jordan loves the guy.
Jordan loves the guy. Yeah.
Let's get him some things that can help him do things. Austin Eckler punting away his career. He doesn't care anymore. When you sign with the Commanders,
you've reached that. You're truly doing it just for the money at that point. Yeah.
Shout out to our guy Gardner Minshew getting 2 years,
just
$25
about to
million.
Say that, with the Raiders. Yep.
Good for him. I like Gardner Minshew, man. I put it on the poll. 96%. Does Gardner Minshew look like hell yeah? And he does.
He does. It was perfect.
Gabe Davis signs with the Jags, $39 million. It was tough to see Gabe Davis leave Buffalo, but at the end of the day, we weren't going to pay him. We knew he was going to get overpaid. And I hate the word overpaid because you're worth what somebody's willing to pay you. But to me, for the Bills, he's not worth 3 years, $39 million.
Yeah.
He just was too inconsistent. He didn't, I liked his big red zone presence, but honestly, he was easily replaceable. And I think we just replaced him with Mac Hollins, who is a tall, go get it, good hands receiver. And he's going to be a lot cheaper. Aaron Jones signing with the Vikings for 1 year, $7 million. That's just revenge sex, right? Like, he said, "Screw you, Green Bay. I'm going to Minnesota."
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
And then ex-Buffalo Bill legend Devin Singletary signs with the Giants, 3 years, $16 million, and former Buffalo Bills legend Zach Moss with the Bengals. So little moves to help little teams move along. But yeah, I think Steelers he's making $1.2 million. Russell Wilson, that can pay off. That right there can make or break. Like, and then you have money and you have money to put stuff around them. You got rid of a headache in Deontay Johnson. George Pickens can now be the guy. And now you have a better quarterback. George Pickens was already nice. Yeah. Now you have a better quarterback throwing to him. It should be an upgrade, over there in Pittsburgh. And then we talked about Kirk Cousins. Is anything else? Did we miss anybody?
That's all I have on my list. I'm sure, listen, in the weeks to come. And there's still a lot of teams that really haven't done much of anything,
Yeah.
I would have thought the Chargers would have been there, particularly new coach coming in. Let's see what we can do. Who knows? Maybe they're waiting to see how the draft shapes up, or maybe there are still in negotiations. Right? I think today was the official day of signing. So maybe there's more to come. Obviously, on Monday, individuals were able to announce what they will be getting. Today is the official day when it comes through. But yeah, no, that's all I had on my list.
I think it's hilarious that the Eagles are bringing back C.J. Gardner-Johnson after he shit talked them, said Philly fucking sucks and they stink, the city stinks and blah blah blah. Chargers releasing Mike Williams, also not a big shocker, but you're not going to pay him $20 million because he can't stay healthy. But I mean, the Texans and the Falcons are the big free agency winners. The Falcons literally only needed a quarterback. They were good. The quarterback play last year was just so bad. The
Yeah.
defense is good. They have really good weapons. Kyle Pitts is going to have a nasty year. I mean, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. It don't get much better than that in terms of skill. Now you can focus on the draft and get offensive linemen, young offensive linemen. You're gonna have to protect. Cousins a little bit, but yeah, I'm like, this is one of the wildest free agency periods that we've had. To me,
I mean, you figure the Falcons have the 8th pick, so there's no reason why they can't go after.
Yeah.
Building an O-line too.
Yeah, they can get the best offensive lineman, or they can trade that trade back, and get some help on the defensive end and do what you got to